Welcome to the Dream Catcher. I am a dream catcher. You are my dream, so let me catch you. Today we begin with ratio lesson 1. Imagine the feeling right after finishing all your exams. Happiness. Correct. What happens after that? 1 week before results? That's the expression of a student. 1 day before result, the expression changes. And on the day of the result, that is the expression of every student. So we've considered two students today. We have Nunam, who scored 75% in her exams, and we have Prince, who scored 50% in his annual exams. Let us compare their results. Nunam's percentage is to Prince's percentage. What we have done for comparison, we have written them in the form of a ratio. So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities of the same kind. They have to be of the same kind. We cannot compare Nunam's height and Prince's weight because height is a different quantity and is measured in terms of maybe meters, centimeters, feet, and weight is a different quantity which is measured in terms of grams or kg. So this were their results. So you'll see we've cancelled the percentage. So we know that a ratio has no SI unit. A ratio will never have an SI unit. It will always get cancelled. So 75 is to 50. So 75 can be written as 3 into 5 into 5 and 50 can be written as 2 into 5 into 5. The purpose of writing this is very important to understand. So what is 3 into 5 into 5? It is the LCM of 75 and 2 into 5 into 5 is the LCM of 50. So we have written it in the form of factors. So what can be done is the factors, common factors can get cancelled. So what is this factor that is getting cancelled is called the HCF, highest common factor. So you see, you'll realize 5 into 5 is 25. So 25 is a common factor between 75 and 50. So we have used 25 to cancel both. So it's 25 2 is 50 and 25 3 is 75. So you'll realize to simplify a ratio, HCF is cancelled. This is the HCF that we generally take as X when we do not know the original form of it. Like it was 75. But now if I write it, it comes to only 3:2. So we do not know what was the original one. But if we know the HCF, suppose only 3:2 is given to us as a ratio of Nunam's result and Prince's result, but we don't know, of course Nunam must not have scored 3% and Prince must not have scored 2%. They must have scored more than that. So but if we know the HCF, like we know the HCF is 25, then we will know 3 into 25 is 75, so that is Nunam's result, and 2 into 25 is 50, that is Prince's result. So this HCF is generally what is taken as X when a ratio is given to us in different questions. Like you may have done this in mensuration, cuboid. Let's say the ratio of length is to breadth is to height is given to us 3:4:5. So we understand 3:4:5 is the simplest form. Right, the SI unit must have get cancelled, and what must have got cancelled? The HCF between these three terms, that is length, breadth and height, must have got cancelled. So we say let the HCF be X. Therefore length will be 3x, breadth will be 4x and height will be 5x. So the purpose of doing this part of the presentation is to understand that about ratios. So you'll see the final part, the ratio is 3:2. The ratio should always and always be expressed in its simplest form or the lowest form. So what we got our result as is 3:2. So let's learn more about it. What is this 3 called? 3, which is the first term of the ratio, is called antecedent. So the first term of a ratio, and this 2, which is the second term, is called consequent, and the symbol that you see in between them is called is 2. So these are the different parts of a ratio. Let's learn more about the properties of ratio. Property 1. Ratio exists only between quantities of same kind. I already discussed that. So if we have 10 kgs of potatoes and 2 dozen bananas, are there quantities of the same kind? No. Potato is expressed in terms of weight and banana is expressed in terms of numbers. So they are not quantities of the same kind. So we cannot form a ratio for this part. What if this is given to us? We have 4 months and 1 year 6 months. Now both are time and we know we can change. 1 year can be written as 12 months, 6 months, and ultimately it is 18 months. So you'd realize they are quantities of the same kind if it can change. Like if I have suppose 500 grams and 1 kg, yes, both are weights, and kg can be changed into grams and grams can be changed into kg. So we have to bring the SI ratio in the form of the same SI units so that the SI units can get cancelled. Property 2. The order of the terms in a ratio is important. So for that, ratio of Nunam's result is to Princess result. What does it mean? Order means position. So first we are talking about Nunam and second we are talking about Prince. If we change this order, then the ratio also changes. So that's why the order of the terms in a ratio is very important. Suppose in a question, let's say from partnership business, it is given to us as the partners are A, B and C and the ratio of capital is 1 is to 2 is to 3. So we cannot alter the order. We cannot say the ratio of B is to A is to C is 1 is to 2 is to 3. Then the ratio also has to change accordingly. Property 3. Both terms of a ratio can be multiplied or divided by the same number, but it should not be a 0. So take for an example, we have a ratio 5 is to 4. So what we can do is we can multiply or divide both the terms with the same number. So we have taken it to be as 2 by 2. Also remember in this step a ratio can always be expressed in the form of a fraction. That's why I've written 5 is to 4 as 5 by 4. And here we are multiplying this both the terms with the same number. It has to always be the same number. So you see 5 twos will give us 10 and 4 twos will give us 8. So ultimately got 10 by 8. But then if you cancel this now, 2 5s are 10, 2 4s are 8. You'll realize the ratio has not changed. It still remains the same. Property 4. A ratio should always be expressed in its lowest form or the simplest form. I just discussed that. Let's take a ratio. So we can write that in the form of a fraction. Then we can break them into factors. We can cancel the highest common factors. So what we are doing now is going to cancel the factors, common factors. So x and x gets cancelled. P and P also gets cancelled. Y and Y also gets cancelled. So what we have got at the end is only x by P, which can be written as x is to P. So this is the simplest form of a ratio. And remember what has got cancelled is the HCF. Property 5. To compare two ratios, convert them to equivalent fraction. Now this part is very important even for partnership and other chapters in class 10. So suppose we have two ratios. First ratio is 3 by 4 is to, two terms in the ratio. 3 by 4 is to 5 by 6. So what we can do is we can make them equivalent fraction. Then it becomes easy to compare. We cannot say which one is more or which one is less here. We can't say 3 by 4 is more or 5 by 6 is less. We can't say for sure. So we have to make them into equivalent fractions. So let's learn that. For that, the first step is to take these denominators 4 and 6. You take the LCM of the denominators, that is 4 and 6. When you do the LCM, you'll get the answer as 12. So now we have to try to make the denominators, both the denominators 12, by using the other property, that is multiplying numerator and denominator by the same number. So you see we have first term 3 by 4. Again we are talking about the denominator. How to make 4 change into 12? We'll multiply 4 with 3. So it has to get multiplied in both numerator and denominator. So you see that is 2. Now we have 5 by 6. How to change 6 into 12? 6 into 2 will give us 12. So we are multiplying this with 2. So then you see 3 3s are gives us 9 by 12, and 5 2s are gives us 10 by 12. So what you see now is what is called as equivalent fractions. We've made the denominators the same. Now we can cancel the denominators. Now what you get here is 9 is to 10. So now you can compare these two ratios, and you can say the second term of the ratio is more and the first term is less. Now there are different types of ratios that we discuss now. The first one is called ratio of equality. In a ratio A is to B, if A is equals to B, that is antecedent and consequent are equal, the ratio is called ratio of equality. Both the terms in the ratio has to be equal. Example, 24 is to 24. You see antecedent and consequent are equal to each other. But what about this example where we have 12 is to 24? This is not a ratio of equality. We can see the first term and the second term are not equal to each other. Then what is this kind of ratio called? This kind of ratio is called ratio of inequality. There are two types of such ratio. In a ratio A is to B, if A by B is more than 1, it is called a ratio of greater inequality. Means the first term is more and the second term is less, so it is greater inequality. In a ratio A is to B, if A by B is less than 1, it is called ratio of lesser inequality. Let us consider two ratios, 3 is to 2 and 2 is to 3, to understand this. 3 by 2 is a greater inequality ratio because 3 by 2 is more than 1, that is 3 by 2 is 1.5, so it is always more than 1. Or you can also understand this in this way, that the first term is more and the second term is less, so it is a ratio of greater inequality. Whereas 2 is to 3 is a lesser inequality ratio because 2 by 3 is less than 1, because 2 by 3 is 0.667, which is less than 1. Now we come to the next part, which is an inverse ratio. In a ratio A is to B, if antecedent and consequent are interchanged, the changed ratio is called inverse ratio of the previous one. So if A is to B, if a ratio is A is to B, then its inverse will be B is to A. Next is compound, or it is also called as mixed ratio. For two or more given ratios, if we take antecedents as product of antecedents, means we have to multiply all antecedents, and consequent as product of consequence, means we have to multiply all the consequence, then the ratio thus formed is called mixed or compound ratio. So if two or more ratios are given to us, we will multiply all the antecedents and will multiply all the consequence. So let us consider two ratios, A is to B and C is to D is two ratios. So if we have to find the compound or mixed ratio, all we do is A by B into C by D. So we'll multiply the antecedents, that is A and C, and we'll multiply the consequence, that is AC by BD. So what you see is a compound or a mixed ratio of the other two ratios that is given to us. So quick lesson recap. A ratio is a comparison of quantities of like kind. A ratio should always be expressed in simplest form. The first term of a ratio is called antecedent and the second term is called consequent. A ratio can be multiplied or divided by a non-zero number. Ratio can be of different types, which we have discussed in the lesson. This is the end of lesson 1. Click on the link given below in the description box to take up the lesson